Alrighty. Welcome everybody. It's week 2. I'm super excited to have y'all. Just for the record, for those of us who are not in the class, this will be on YouTube, as I'm assuming you would have found it. If otherwise, you wouldn't be seeing this. But we thank y'all for that, and be sure to just email us with any questions that you may have. Alrighty. So let me go ahead and go to my PowerPoint. Can everybody see that? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. So awesome. Week 2. So today we're going to get into data sets and graphics. So really this is the cool stuff. Last week was just kind of getting you familiar with R, kind of what it is as a language, what we can do. And this week it's really where we're going to start to really start to take off in terms of just getting, what are the nails, what is the wood, what are the actual building materials that we just build this foundation of data science and data journalism on. So our agenda for today, which is very important. We're going to have some quick announcements at the beginning. Then we'll also do a very, very quick review of our markdown, and more specifically, point you all to our markdown cheat sheet, which was attached in the, I believe, in the homework, if not the demo. And so that just to point you to that for a point of reference. And then we're going to have our demo of data sets and graphics for this week, which I will lead you all through. And then we will go to breakout rooms so that you all can start on your new activity. Awesome. All right, so some quick announcements. Yep, so first off, if you didn't see in the Slack, we officially have the YouTube channel. So basically, this is only for people, I guess, who can't make it to class, which we totally understand. Schedules are crazy and just life happens. So feel free to always go to the YouTube channel to rewatch the videos. Yeah, and also if you want to review a concept or anything, feel free to use that. And also, but if you do have questions, always please use the Slack. You can always set up a quick Zoom if you can't make it to the normal office hours. We really just want this to be, we don't want you to ever feel like you're either falling behind or you're overwhelmed and if you feel like things are falling through the cracks, like that. The goal of this whole program is that this is a very highly individualized program to make sure that you really have strong foundations. Also, office hours, in case you didn't see, it's going to be on Saturday from 8 to 9 p.m. PDT. That's going to be mostly with Kevin. I'll occasionally hop on, but sometimes I can't make it. And then on Sunday from 12 to 1 PDT. Those are my office hours. Again, Kevin will sometimes show up. He won't always. So, clearly the Saturday ones are the ones you want to go to. But if you want much more, I guess, as Kevin was putting it, fetus energy, come to mine. And we'll have a great time. Yep. Also, one thing, it's fine for, I guess, for those watching the YouTube channel, please feel free to ask your questions in the comments or shoot us a quick email. But for those of us in the program, if you do have questions, it's really awesome if you can put them through Slack. And the reason for that is typically if you have a question, someone else has the same question. And so obviously, if it's a personal question or a comment, please feel free to private message us. That's totally fine. But if it's a general question like, oh, I don't understand this part of the homework, or does anybody remember what function or what, parameter did X, Y, or Z, send that through the main group so that, everybody can kind of use it at the same time. And it's just, it helps create a very collaborative learning environment. And finally, we're going to have some social events coming up. Stay tuned for those. We'll send those out via the Slack, so a bit more privately in terms of what they are, what they're going to do. These are completely optional. It's just to kind of continue for you all to get to know each other better, because obviously it's a little difficult to socialize these days. But, there's a lot of really awesome resources, and we really, really, really like code names. So if you like that game, you'll be excited.
Just want to say a heads up. The social events are super cool, especially for a tight-knit community like our classes here. All of the people from our last iteration of this class are pretty good friends now. They talk outside of this class. They just kind of have random goofy calls until 3 a.m. that they try to drag me into.
Yep. It's a great time. So highly, highly recommend that you join us if you're able to. Awesome. Any questions on those, on any of the announcements? Feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat. Kevin, I don't think I can see the chat, so if one does pop up in the chat, feel free to read it off as well.
Yeah, so if you don't feel comfortable or don't want to or can't message or say your question aloud, I'll be monitoring the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, sweet. Cool. So let's do a quick review of our markdown. And really this review, I guess, is less like a physical review in terms of a demo where I pull up RStudio and like run you through some things, and really more of the cheat sheet. So this is a zoomed in, I don't want to pull up the whole cheat sheet because it's a little, well, but basically you can always just Google R, whatever you want to know. So whether it's, in this case, it would be markdown, or you can do ggplot, which is what we're going to learn in today with like graphics and things. Like, if you ever have questions with these big packages, like our studio company has made these really, really, really nice, like, oh, my bad. There we go. These nice cheat sheets. And that like shows you kind of some of the syntax, which is super helpful. So for here, we can see, this is what was in your homework. We say, okay, if I want to put plain text, when I knit my document, it still stays as plain text. But let's say I wanted a header. I put the 1 hashtag or the 1 pound, and then that's how it becomes bold. 2 makes it a little less bold. And this takes you through the entire R Markdown library. And so all the different things that you can do, whether it's, embedding graphs, or, I actually just learned recently that you can put a Sigma sign when you have to do math homework. So yay, very fun stuff. But, just always, these cheat sheets are super, super, super helpful. Some people even like make books out of them. Yeah, so just again, if, with R Markdown and just most of the things that we'll cover, at least within beginnR, these cheat sheets will be your best friend. Cool. Were there any questions people had about R Markdown, whether on the homework or anything? Oh, I guess also, there was a question today, which I don't think we had to respond to yet. I was going to respond to now. You don't actually physically turn in your homework, mainly because you can if you want to like bring it into office hours and we can like look it over and chat about it. But the homeworks are not necessarily designed to be difficult per se. Occasionally, once we get to like more complicated ones, we'll review it in class together. But oftentimes at these introductory ones, and we'll let you know if that's going to be the case. But for these introductory ones, it's kind of more. This is very much like you can kind of take what you want out of this course as well. So yeah, but yeah, and again though, if you do have any questions about it, please bring those up. Yeah, and yeah, I mean there just are no grades, so this is very much more it's designed to be a stress-free learning environment. Cool. Any questions? Sorry about any of that in terms of R Markdown, or I guess anything we've covered up to this point. Awesome. Cool. Alrighty, demo time. So let me go ahead and stop sharing. 1 second. Let me pull this up. Bum, 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 bum. 1 hot second. This is where you all get to just watch my eyes roam as I pull it all up and make sure we are good to go. All right, and let me pull up the exact same file that you all have. There we go. All righty. Oh, this is so sad. My computer's running too many things right now. Come on, load. Now is not the time. There we go. And bam. Awesome. All righty, let me share. Boom, boom, pow. All right, can everybody see this okay? Is it still loading? All right, we good to go? Awesome. So welcome to Data Visualization Basics. So, yep, just a quick review from last time. Our library. So with every time you open up R, you don't need to install a package again. Once you install a package, it's good to go. You don't need to install it again. You can always update it. And actually, one way you can do that is you can go to packages and you can go to update right here. And this do all the different things that you can update. And I mean, there's so many libraries out there that, yeah, it's been a while since I've updated. But besides that, you never need to update again. But what you can do is you need to reinstall using the library. So it's kind of almost just like a quick refresher. And so, this is what we did. So I want tidyverse because tidyverse has all the things we're going to be using today. So I'm going to run that chunk. Awesome. Let it roll. Yep. And so specifically, we had mentioned this before, but tidyverse is really this, this umbrella term that we use, this umbrella package of a bunch of smaller packages. So today, the main one that we're going to be focusing on is ggplot2. And ggplot2 is the first one, and it's there for a reason. That being, this is one of the most, if not the most used package in all of R, particularly because almost anything graphics any, dot plots, density, cool interactive maps. A lot of them, either are solely ggplot or have a component of ggplot. It's just really a foundational package for R. Yep, and just remember again, always, we have our help menu in case you are curious about. So right now, I was actually looking up right before this, a function within ggplot2. And so just remember that you can always have that. And you can also use F1, but also be sure if you want to use F1, you have to be inside the chunk. So just, remember that thing. And then also last thing, knitting, just a quick refresher here. This button up here, this is what you can do so you have it within your R, but if you want to, make it into an HTML or a PDF, you always want to knit, and that'll also help you catch your bugs, because if there's, there's an error or, a bug or whatever it is, it won't knit correctly. So that's what I need to know. Awesome. So before we get to ggplot though, we want to know, what are we going to graph? And so this is really where we get into our data frames basics. And one thing that's really, really great about R is R has a lot of built-in data sets. And so what that refers to is that they're data sets that just when you installed RStudio into your computer for the first time, it just has. And this is including base R. So base R commands, or we kind of review them closely, but they're it's basically the simpler version of tidyverse. But then we wanted the better version, so we used tidyverse. So that's how we installed it. But some data frames are like base R that they were already in there. So one of these is the MPG data frame. So I'm gonna go ahead and run that, so just we can see it. And so I guess it's kind of you can look at it, and one thing that's nice too is I can actually with many of these you can look them up in your help finder to see exactly it'll give you much more proper much more in-depth description of the data set. So it's fuel economy data from 1999 to 2008 for 38 popular models of cars, and really kind of describes what all the variables are. You could either, it's fairly obvious, particularly, I mean, maybe not so obvious. I definitely didn't know what some of these terms were, but manufacturer, Audi. Well, most of us can figure out this is about cars. But for example, types of transmission, or DRV, the type of drivetrain. Like, I didn't know that. And more importantly, with a lot of these data sets, what you're going to find is it's important to know what type of data is in the column. So here, year, like a number. But obviously that's like, we can see that here for int. And if you're new to CS and you haven't seen this term before, what int stands is int stands for integer. But then we have trans, which is CHR, and that stands for characters. So that's like letters. And hence we have like auto, manual. And then the other, those are like bad counts are would, are your 80-85% of all types of columns. Just DBL, which is double, which just refers to not whole numbers. But besides that, you'll very rarely find other types of data. But great, so this is, now we have our data set and we're ready to roll. So we're actually we're gonna skip that for now. But now let's go ahead and do our plot. So this is our finished plot of what we're gonna look like. Now though, I want us to, so now we kind of see what it is, but now let's actually go up to the code. So first thing you have is ggplot. So ggplot is just, if you wanted to, we could do our little question mark, which Kevin never does, but I do. And you can run it and see exactly what it is. And it's awesome. It says creates a new ggplot, or creates a new graph. And when we look here, we can see what all these parameters are. So for example, it says like data equals null, mapping equals AES, all these extra things. And I'm like, oh, I'm not sure what this is. You can see it. It tells you what these arguments are. It says dataset, default dataset to use for the plot. So here, what I had placed was data equals MPG. So I'm saying what I want you to graph, it's going to come from this data frame. And then it's mapping, and it says default list of aesthetics mapping to use for the plot. Now that's a bit more trickier of language. So just to simplify this, what that basically means is saying, okay, what exactly do I want to plot? Because the data, this particular data file has like a lot of things. Like, you're seeing it has like manufacturer. It has, the engine displacement. It has the year it was made. So mapping is saying, okay, I know this is a big data set, but here's what I specifically want. So here, what we were saying is, okay, for X, I want CTY, and for Y, I want highway. And let me actually go right back to our MPG so you can see exactly what that is. Yep, so for CTY, city miles per gallon. So I want to know, okay, how far can you go per gallon in a city versus highway miles per gallon. So, when I'm driving on a highway, it's just like straight as opposed to like, having to weave my way through my city, stop, go all this acceleration, all these car-y terms. I want to see like, okay, which cars give me the best options for these? And so I would put that all in. And now I want to say, okay, now that I'm at ggplot, I have, this is what I want to graph. Now the thing is, so what specifically how do I want to graph it? And so that's where we have what is called point. And so point, it's kind of self-explanatory, but when I run this, it's going to be points. So each one of these points represents a point within the data set. So this guy right here. And, we can actually see for this first one, it's going to be, okay, CTY is going to be 18, HWY is going to be 29. So he's probably, somewhere around like here. I bet he's like that guy right there. So, and so he's doing it for every single one. And so this is, a very simple graph, but what you're going to find is, this is not that tricky to learn, but this is like, there's going to be, a lot of bells and whistles and some other, data manipulation, all the other things we're going to learn in this course. But this, this is really a bread and butter graph that you're going to be using this type of, syntax a lot. Yep. Do we have any questions up until this point? Awesome. Yep. So this is your first official graph. So, yep. Yeah, and we did look at the helping you to go through all this. And so now one thing we want to talk about is pipes and plots. And so what are pipes? Pipes are these little thingamabobs here. I don't know how to describe it because they're known as pipes. And as you can see, this graph and this graph are the exact same thing, right? There's no difference whatsoever. The only difference is we have MPG, pipe, ggplot here, and then all of the rest of our things. Whereas here, we said data equals MPG. So what's the difference? The difference is, in this case, we're saying ggplot knows, the pipe is basically linking the data set to ggplot. And so it's basically, instead of saying within ggplot explicitly saying data equals MPG, I'm just saying, okay, I have my data frame, link it to whatever I want to do next. And in this case, what I want to do next is ggplot and point. And so ggplot knows, okay, I don't need to receive a data argument because I'm being linked to MPG. And so the reason why we do this as opposed to here is this is going to be the more standard form. And again, the reason for this, is usually there's going to be a lot more things in between. Because what oftentimes happens is, MPG is a super nice, cleaned, labeled data set. But in the real world, that is almost never the case, Every time you get, and you can think of, your surveys in high school when people put silly answers or put, age 999. So there's going to be things you have to do to data before you can graph it. And so you would put, argument here, argument here. Oh, it didn't move. But then what you do is you pipe it again. So you're saying, okay, the data frame is still linking everything, but now I'm saying, okay, I wanted to change something in here. So let's say with MPG that there was someone had been a goofball, put for highway -100 miles per gallon. Something that's ridiculous or unreal. I would use this, we'll get into more, all these arguments. One of these are, these are functions and like all these things of cleaning data we're going to get into. But basically, you can do all this work. And by using these pipes to link everything, you're going to get to, you're basically going to let ggplot say, okay, now plot everything that's happened up until this point. And just one thing, it's going to take a little while to get used to the pipes, but that's okay. Oftentimes, one of the most common bugs you'll get if you're trying to click on something and it's not working, most common thing is you forgot to put in a pipe. So like it'll be super common where I say MPG, and this won't make sense to you right now, and that's totally fine. But mutate is just a we might have reviewed it briefly, but just create a new column and just say new column equals CTY plus 1. And I try to run it, but it only does this part. I'm like, wait, what happened to my plot? I have to do another pipe. And now it works. In this case, I could put, and right, what's nice about this, so let's say I did want to put new column. Like let's say I like realized that, you know, all my data was off by 1. You know, I'm linking it. And so ggplot knows, okay, I'm taking in anything that's coming before. A new column is being linked by this pipe before. And now I can run it. And now, yeah, it's a little tricky to tell. Yeah, I'll say I did it by like 100, you know. Yeah, now you can, yeah, there you go. So now it's like boosted up a bit. Yep, on this X column, you have 110 versus 10. Yep, cool. Any questions about pipes so far? You know, what their purpose is. Awesome, cool. Alrighty. Yep. So, you know, this is kind of just our plotting template. You know, this is kind of, this will become secondhand nature and you won't need to refer back to this. But basically, you're always going to have your data, so, you know, the data frame, pipe to ggplot with your mapping aesthetics, and then your geoms. And the reason why we put geoms is obviously, you know, this is all geom point. But like, you know, let's say I typed geom. There's a lot of different things that geom can do. You know, it can do lines, it can do area, it can do columns, it can do, you know, all these, a crossbar, a curve, density 2D. It's just all these really, really, really cool. Oh, histograms, we'll definitely use those. But, you know, and like, again, if you don't, you know, we won't cover all of them, but this handy dandy help menu, you can always look up what all of them are. So that's what we mean by geoms. And one like quick important thing to note is so you have pipes and then you have this plus sign. They effectively are doing the same thing. The pluses are specific to ggplot because basically what pipes are referring to data manipulation, whereas the pluses are going to be all about data graphics. So for example, like let's say I forgot to put in this plus, you know, it says, oh, let me put CTY. Yep. So, you know, it's like, okay, so we have this blank graph and nothing's here, but it knows it like, okay, highway on my x-axis, highway on my y-axis, and CTY on my x-axis, but oh, I forgot to say, and we're also doing geom point. So that's why I need to add the plus. You know, and let's say I had forgotten like, oh, let me try to do a pipe. Oh. You know, let's say, oh, you know, actually, there we go. Ooh, can't spell today. Yep, it says, interesting, error. Mapping must be created by AES. Did you use pipe instead of plus? So, you know, as you can see, this is a really common mistake that people make. I made this one so many times when I was first learning R. So, you know, R sometimes has these really helpful little error menus that will help you out. And again, you know, one thing, this little cheat sheet is the exact same thing we were reviewing with R markdown, but for ggplot that just has everything and anything in there, so you can always refer to that. Awesome. We'll be doing this in a second, but did anybody have any questions? Great, awesome. Alrighty, I think we are good then in terms of the recording.